Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakodash. That's the true power of heaven and earth. Double honors to the apostles and elders and bishops of Great Millstone who taught us this truth and continually teach us this truth. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect Akim that's laboring in his word and truth and sincerity. Lord willing, this could be an edifying and an exhorting video. And, I've been hearing multiple brothers say the same thing concerning brothers not being in that prepper spirit, which, shows that we're one body. Okay, we speak the same thing, which, there's nothing wrong with, getting a few things if the spirit's on you to do that. But, we don't put our trust in, things that, we buy, because we don't know where we're going to be when the deal goes down. Okay. And, inflation is still going up. All right. Soon, Lord willing, by this summer, it's going to be hyperinflation. Okay. And it's going to get to a point where it's going to be famine. All right. It's going to be scarce. Food is going to be scarce. It's going to be hard to find food. And people are, accustomed to going to the grocery store. You got farmers, but, most people are accustomed to just going to the grocery store or going to fast food. So these people are going to suffer. All right. But the servants of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai are going to be good. Okay. The Lord is going to have his servants in a good position, which, matter of fact, let me start off with Isaiah. Let me start off here. Okay. Because we don't have to be in that doomsday prepper spirit. All right, stocking up on food, stocking up on water, stocking up on, non-perishables that can last for 5 years. You know what I mean? Just doing the most, in that Canadian prepper spirit, getting freeze-dried. I remember he did a video talking about freeze-dried tacos that last 12 years. Man, we ain't doing that shit, man. And I done heard multiple brothers go into this. I was listening to Apostle Elder Gabar. He did a live yesterday, and he had made mention of Job, the 5th chapter, which, I'm going to grab. All right, because brothers got faith, But this is Isaiah chapter 65, verse 13. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, power, behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. So we know hyperinflation is coming. Okay, it's in the scriptures. All right, Revelation, the 6th chapter, it shall cost a day's pay for a loaf of bread. So it's going to get to the point where, women are going to do anything to be with a man, because it's going to be hard to be alone. All right, you ain't going to have people saying they independent and, I pay everything on my own. You know how women are. They don't want to go 50-50 with a man, which is stupid. Why wouldn't you want 50% off? But all that's going to be thrown out the window when these times come. And the servants of the Lord will eat while everyone else won't eat. Okay, people are going to resort to cannibalism. Okay, people are going to resort to busting in their neighbor's home just to get food. All right, which, let me grab that real quick. I'm going to jump back to that. Okay, because, it's going to get bad. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 15, verse 19. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So people are going to bust in each other's homes, man, kill the whole family. The modern day sword is the gun. Okay, and take their possessions, man. Okay. And it says why? Because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So when people get hungry, that's when people gonna say fuck it. All morality will be gone. It's gonna be people gonna be in survival mode. And see, men know how to adapt. Men gonna be busting people upside the head, taking a shit, waiting in the parking lot, seeing who's coming out with groceries, seeing, who's filling up their gas, and they're gonna be waiting. They're gonna be plotting. Okay, while women are gonna be looking for a man, chiefly the men of the Lord. Okay. But it's going to get real bad out here. But even before that happens, we're going to see these prices. It's going to be it's just not going to make sense to be an independent woman, to be, to pay everything on your own, because Trump is already talking about cutting off, what benefits was he talking about cutting off? I forget, but pretty much, they in war mode, so it's going to be a lot of these benefits getting cut off, man. The government ain't going to be helping you. So that's why Isaiah 4:1 is going to come to pass. But let me jump back to that Isaiah. Quick video scriptures we already know. But we coming into this time, man, back in Isaiah chapter 65, verse 13, therefore thus saith the Lord power, behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. So the servants of the Lord are going to have food and water. It says, behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. The servants of the Lord is going to rejoice because, for one, the Lord is going to be taking care of them. And for two, all prophecies is being fulfilled. See, we want this place to go down. We're hastening the return of our power, and we know this place has to fully collapse. Okay, this war has to intensify. There has to be famine and pestilences, and, the MOTB has to be made mandatory. All of these things has to play out before the return of Yahushua. Okay, and at this point, it's going to be, up from there. When it gets to this point where people are starving to death, people are dying of thirst, and that's why a lot of people going to resort to cannibalism, because they're not going to have any hope. Okay, they're going to start eating wild animals, possums, squirrels, and all kind of shit, man, to avoid starvation, while the men of the Lord are going to be cool. We don't have to be in that Canadian prepper, that full spectrum survival spirit. That dude, it ain't nothing wrong with, knowing a few things, having a few things, but don't think that that's your salvation. See, these guys, they think that that's their salvation. All the shit they have, the food, the water, the powdered milk, and their guns and all that shit, man. They think that's gonna be their salvation. The Lord can take their ass out and lead his servants to take their spoils. That's why, let me go back to Job. This is Job chapter 5. Start at verse 19. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles. Yeah, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. So, we're not afraid of the things that's coming. We know it's going to get bad. We know we're going to be put in positions where, our faith is the only way to keep our sanity. Our faith is what's going to get us out. It's what's going to get us through. We know it's going to get rough, but ultimately the Lord has not given us the spirit of fear, but of a sound mind, as the scriptures say, and we believe the Lord is going to take care of us, just as he did to the prophets of old. The scriptures say, look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded? Okay, the Lord delivered his men through famines. Look at Elijah as an example. Okay, the Most High had an angel bring him food. Had a raven bring him meat. Led him, to a woman. It was her and her son. And the Most High took care of them, man, fed them, man. There's many examples of the Lord taking care of his men through tribulation, through tough times. And we know the Lord is going to show out on a greater scale in these times. So, brothers, don't be in that. I already know brothers ain't, I know brothers believe, but, just throwing it out there, because, multiple brothers is on the same page. Don't be in that thinking that's your salvation is going to be stocking up a whole bunch of food and shit, because once again, we don't know where we're going to be. The scripture speaks about being as pilgrims on the earth. Okay. Reading on. In famine, he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. You see? So we're not going to be affected by the famine. Now, the Lord could, test brothers. Brothers could go a day or two without eating, but, ultimately the Lord is going to come through, man. The Lord, is not going to starve his prophets to death. He know his prophets got to eat, man. So he's going to redeem his believers from death, from famine. Okay, I'm going to read it in the NLT. He will save you from death in time of famine, from the power of the sword in time of war, because Esau is crashing out. He's going to come down with great wrath because he know that he has but a short time. Okay, but the Lord is going to deliver his man. Reading on, thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. See? So the Lord is going to remove that fear, and amplify our faith. We're still in this flesh. We experience these things, but ultimately the Lord is going to amplify brothers' faith. The Lord is going to make his men strong in the spirit, man. And that's why brothers have been going through different things to strengthen your mind, to strengthen your faith, to strengthen you for these times that's fastly approaching. It says, at destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth. So for you to laugh at famine and destruction, what position are you in to laugh at that? The Lord is going to have his men in a great position, man. I'll read that in the NLT. You will laugh at destruction and famine. Wild animals will not terrify you, because just like the Most High had a raven bring Elijah meat, the Most High can easily have these animals bring us certain things, and they're not going to attack us. We're going to be at peace with them. Some of us may have, bears or lions or, certain animals around us to help us out. We're going to be at peace with them, man. Because ultimately the Lord controls the mouth of the wild beast. He can have a lion attack you, animal. He can have an animal attack you, or he can have an animal not attack you. Just like with Daniel, when Daniel was put in the lion's den, the Most High had it to where, he had angels pretty much have the lions not affect Daniel, not bother him, not seek to eat him. But soon as Daniel was freed and his accusers were thrown in there, the lions had the mastery over them. So just like the Lord did that back then, he can easily do it again, and he will do it again. That's why this is written. Because, if we're pilgrims, man, on the earth, and say we moving, hey, you may have to move through the woods. You moving somewhere off grid, and it's going to be a lot of wild animals. May come across a bear or, a mountain lion or something, but it ain't going to bother you. May come up to you and bring you something. All right. So I'm going to grab this in Esdras, and then that'll be this video. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 2, verse 27. Be not weary, for when the day of trouble and heaviness cometh, others shall weep and be sorrowful, but thou shalt be merry and have abundance. So the men of the Lord are going to have everything they need to make it to the return of Yahushai. Okay? So, we don't have to be in that doomsday prepper spirit. All right? We got faith in the Lord. Okay? So, you know, like I said, quick video, Lord willing, it was edifying. With that, I'm going to say shalom.